You know it's true, Dolphin fans, that the way to handle a young quarterback is not what Brian Flores and the Miami Dolphins did in 2020. And that was really dumb. It was. You just got to be honest about this. Maybe it made sense to not start Tua from day one because he was recovering from the hip injury. You had Ryan Fitzpatrick, so you at least had a somewhat capable starting quarterback. Maybe the initial thought was you play it a little safe with Tua and his health. Fitzpatrick, maybe day one, gives you the better chance to win, especially because of COVID and the impacts to preseason, training camps, etc. I could understand that. Doesn't mean I fully agree or disagree with it. Just is what it is. But then when you start off 3-3, you're kind of in the playoff mix. You then randomly make the decision, what seemed to be a little bit out of nowhere, to go with Tua. And then Tua experienced a lot of the challenges that you would see a young rookie quarterback face. Some ups and some downs. You know, not all on Tua. Some of the surrounding cast certainly let him down. The offensive coordinator did him absolutely no favors at time, literally changing the play calling dependent upon the quarterback, and it didn't suit Tua. It didn't help Tua. But then what really didn't help Tua was Brian Flores going with the old Ross Perot. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. And all of that dumb shit just to have a double-digit win season and miss the playoffs. Like, yes, Miami progressed nicely in 2020 overall. In terms of some of the on-field stuff, you could see where Brian Flores knows what he's doing. You can see that this is a team that's needles pointing upwards. But the number one most important thing, and again, I want to emphasize, the number one most important thing for that franchise in 2020 was not trying to win stupid games so they might be able to slide into the playoffs, which, oh, by the way, you ultimately fucking missed anyway, so you look like dumb dicks. But it was to find out whether or not Tua was the dude. And the absolute reality is that 1 year in, you don't know. Nobody knows. The Bengals at least saw enough out of Joe Burrow before he went down with a season-ending injury where they think he could be that guy. The Chargers saw enough out of Justin Herbert in spite of their initial stupidity, thanks Anthony Lynn, that they know that Justin Herbert is that guy. You have no fucking clue with the Miami Dolphins. None. So you look at them and you say, okay, you probably drafted the wrong quarterback when you took Tua instead of Justin Herbert, is what it is. Now this year you're in a position, thanks to the Houston Texans, that you have the third overall pick. You could take another quarterback if so inclined. But they didn't. They passed on the chance to draft a Trey Lance, a Justin Fields, a Mac Jones, drafting a Jalen Waddle instead with the 6th overall pick. For the Miami Dolphins, I want to be clear on this, is that Tua better be that dude. Because if not, within 2 years, everybody involved, general manager Chris Grier, head coach Brian Flores, should be fired for malfeasance and criminal stupidity. That doesn't mean that Tua can't be the guy. That doesn't mean that he won't be the guy. But you potentially are looking at it and saying in a 2-year stretch they passed on Justin Herbert, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. There are overwhelming odds that at least one of them is going to be better than Tua. There are good odds that 2 of them are going to be better than Tua. There are decent odds that 3 of them are going to be better than Tua. So before we start pumping up the Miami Dolphins to talk about how great this organization is and how much they've turned it around and everything else, like the most important position, the one decision that matters the most, they've made several decisions involving that position over the past year and a half. They better hope to God they're right. It's not surprising to hear a lot of talk throughout the offseason about how they were interested in Deshaun Watson, that they were one of the top suitors in a Deshaun Watson trade sweepstakes. Like even recently started to come out that Miami was still interested, that Miami was the leader if a deal was ever going to get done. And this is counterproductive. If you're going to make the deal, you should have already fucking done it. If not, You need to shut up about it. You need to stop putting any reports of any kind out there, or allowing any reports like that of any kind to get out there. And you need to roll with Tua. You need to show the faith and confidence and belief in him that you absolutely did not in 2020. What's the best way to ruin a young quarterback and a young quarterback's confidence? Show zero stability and zero confidence in his ability and go back and forth on him. How is a young quarterback supposed to believe in himself if nobody else does? So hopefully the Deshaun Watson rumors, at least for the time being, are put to rest for the Miami Dolphins. And they can focus on finding out what really matters the most in 2021. Whether Tua can be the guy or not. And that's what's unfortunate about this. Is you could have known a little bit better heading into this year. Instead of guessing, wishing, hoping, believing. You could have had a better idea, better inclination, better understanding. Now you're here in year 2. 2021 is now the season where it's all about Tua. And that's how important the quarterback position is. Some of you watch a lot of these videos probably are wondering, man, you talk about the quarterbacks a lot. Why do you fixate on them so much? Is it because you're a Bears fan and they don't have quarterbacks that can play? Yeah, that's part of it because I've seen the damage that causes. I understand the cycle of mediocrity that can be created as a result of that. You have to have a quarterback in today's game, period. It's not up for debate or discussion. You must have one. You either do and you have a chance, or you don't and you don't. So that's why it's all that matters for the Miami Dolphins, is what they get out of Tua. And when you look at the NFL draft, they kind of had all this draft pick capital. They did a mix here of what felt like targeting, best player available or best fit for their system. Jalen Waddle, bringing him in. We'll see whether or not he ends up being better than a Jamar Chase, who was taken one slot ahead of him, who the Dolphins could have potentially drafted at number 3 if they stayed there. Better than one of the offensive linemen like Rashawn Slater or Penei Sewell. We'll see if he ends up being better than Devontae Smith. But I get the upside here, the play for the quickness, the speed, the home run ability. Jalen Phillips, another high athlete upside type of guy on the defensive side of the ball. Javon Holland, good, solid prospect. Liam Eichenberg, some of you envision potentially being a long-term starter on the offensive line. So at least I'll say this. They had draft pick capital to use. They've used some of it. We'll see how this all pans out. Looking at this Dolphins team on paper, what are some of the things that I like about them? I'll say scoring defense. Even if they give up some yards, they do a really good job of tightening up in the red zone and not giving up a ton of points. And then I also stick on the defensive side of the ball and the big plays that they can manufacture and make on defense. Tied for 10th in the league in sacks, even though I agree there was a big schmoz of teams tied for 10th. But they have a pass rush that can kill some momentum for opposing offenses, that can stop drives. They were first in the league in interceptions. When you look at that, your ability to turn teams over and get the ball back and give your offense more scoring opportunities is something that every NFL defense would love to be able to do, and they can do that. I will say Brian Flores, in terms of his abilities as a defensive kind of coach and looking at that defensive side of the ball and what he can do, I like him. That I respect about him. The back and forth with the quarterback position was really dumb and counterproductive. And he failed. It's that simple. Hopefully he learned from that experience last year for this year. But Brian Flores clearly is a decent leader of men. He clearly is somebody that does good work on the defensive side of the ball, so they're going to be coached up well there. So he is a strength as well. Some of the question marks, I think, for this team largely revolve around the offensive side of the ball. Where the hell is the running game going to come from? Even if you say, yeah, Tua as a starter for a full season is going to improve the running game. I have no doubts about that, no question about that. But do they have a featured back type of guy? You really going to count that much on somebody like a Myles Gaskin? Really? Look at Miami's backfield and tell me where there's a guy that you believe in to be a bell cow back. A guy that you believe in that could be a real difference maker out of the backfield. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have one. Not ideal when you have a young quarterback, but certainly when you talk about a team like this, that's something I feels like is going to really impact them negatively when it really matters later on in the season and potentially in the playoffs. As I look at the Dolphins and their schedule, Couple of blocks of games that stand out to me. You open up the year at New England and hosting Buffalo. You absolutely want to avoid an 0-2 start at all cost. You'd really like to win that first game because then you go home to host Buffalo and either have a chance to go 2-0 or at least, worst case scenario, you're 1-1. You've split your first two games. You've split your first two games in the division and you have a tiebreaker edge over New England. So those first two games are really important for the Miami Dolphins. They've got to have Tua off to a good start. Then you've got kind of this middle stretch here, week 6 to 9. They go to Jacksonville, host Atlanta, to Buffalo, host Houston. Now you look at that, 3 of them are certainly very winnable games. You really need to come out of that stretch 3-1 if you're the Dolphins. If you A, want to think about making the playoffs this year, or B, have a shot or feel like you have a shot of potentially contending with the Bills in the AFC East. And then you look at the closing stretch of the season. You've got the Jets at home, another divisional game against their own young quarterback and young head coach in Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh. Then you go to New Orleans, to Tennessee, and then come back and host New England the last week of the season. So another stretch that I look at and I say, you really want to go 3-1. You got to win those 2 divisional home games. And then you'd really like to beat a Tennessee because that could potentially be a team that you're contending with in terms of playoff positioning. And if you want to get there, that's a game you really want to win. When I look at the Dolphins this year, there are some really good pieces on this team. There really are, on both sides of the ball. There are a lot of questions to me about Tua right now. I was not a huge Tua advocate before the 2020 draft. I saw nothing in the regular season last year that gave me pause to think that, man, I really blew my evaluation on Tua. He did not look great. Now, like I said, some of that I don't blame him for. Some of that it is on him. But it is very important that he come out and he play well, because if not, it should lead to questions, and a lot of sizable, significant questions for the Miami Dolphins, their organization, their leadership. I've seen some Dolphins fans online bending over backwards to defend Tua and spin everything positively Tua. And I hope that bears fruit for you, and I hope that you are proven to be right. Because if not, a lot of you are going to look like absolute freaking clowns. And that's the reality. I think this Miami team is good. I think still, with so much uncertainty at the quarterback position, I have trouble projecting them to be more than a 10-win team. They had some uncertainty at quarterback last year. That's where they were. They were a double-digit win team. I could see them doing the same thing this year, making the playoffs. But if Tua progresses and develops and shows that he's got some franchise quarterback type of skills at the NFL level, this is a Miami team that could be a little dangerous. But I really worry about Tua, and even more so for this offense, I worry about their running game and how that might eventually hold them back from being able to go as far as they could otherwise. Miami's a good team. I just don't think they belong in the conversation of the best teams of the AFC right now.